Welcome to Women's Wealth, the podcast with me, Joanne. My mission is to educate, inspire, and empower you all to step into your own life of wealth. That feeling of being so rich in your mind, body, and soul. I'm so happy to have you here. Let's get straight into it. Hello, welcome to Hello, welcome to the first episode of 2025. We're joined again today by Dorothy. Teddy's just snapped at her, so she's feeling a little bit sorry for herself. And she got her first period on Christmas Day. So she's still, what day are we on? It's New Year's Eve today. So she's has a little bit of time left on that. I know, Dorothy, I shouldn't be telling everybody, should I? Probably a little bit too much information. But today, first of all, Happy New Year. I'm so glad to have you all back. I would love to hear if you have any thoughts from the last episode, your reflections on 2024, and how it's going to help you to navigate your 2025. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into that. It kind of links onto that, your mindset for this year. And we're going to uncover, I'm going to look at 3 lies that we all tell ourselves. We're going to pull these lies apart and we're going to use the truth we can take from these lies to help us to navigate through 2025, to help us to let go of any limiting belief, negative thought patterns, anything we were doing in 2024 and previous years, making 2025 the year where you really grab it by the balls. You know, you're going to take it, you're going to run with it, and you're going to really live the life that you desire this year. And just take a moment to reflect on how you feel at the beginning of a new year. Do you sometimes just think or feel, more of a feeling, same shit, different year? You put all of these wishes, manifestations, intentions, New Year's resolutions, whatever you want to call them, in place. But deep down, somewhere deep down in your gut, in your subconscious, you really do think or feel that this year's not going to be any different. Like, what's going to change? And it's kind of an underlining. I've had it, writing all down the wishes, the desires, and, deep down in my mind, I'm like, well, I don't know why I'm doing this because nothing's going to change. It's kind of a tick box activity that we feel like we should do, and we feel like we should be ready to make all of these changes just because it's a new year. Sometimes we might not be ready to change, and I mentioned in the last podcast that time is, we construct time, but it is nice to have these times to reflect and to put new things into place. And it might be that, you're having these thoughts, and like I've said, I've been there, you're not alone, that same shit, different year, nothing changes, nothing's going to be different, I've got the same job, I'm doing everything's just the same, I'm just going to plod on and just tread water forever and ever until the day I die. But what I want to share with you today is exactly why these thoughts are holding us back. Why, when we truly believe that nothing's going to change, that nothing changes. And I'm not talking from a spiritual or woo-woo point of view. I'm talking about you, me, us mapping out our own lives and believing the lies that we tell ourselves. So we've spoken about this before, I've mentioned it before, but your thoughts are powerful. And we control our thoughts. That's how powerful we are, that we have control over our thoughts. However, and I'm guilty, I'm holding my hands up to this. And even now, even though I put the work in, I still have thoughts that I have to catch and think, oh my God, where did that just come from? Like, what? And it kind of shocks me. I'm like, no, I don't want that. But it just comes out of nowhere. And you'll know it, like, I don't want to think that. Why am I thinking about that? And sometimes it can be weird. I've got a little bit of OCD, and for my anxiety, I get intrusive thoughts, and sometimes I'm like, oh my God, that's, too many horror movies. I'm not going to go into the details. I have got a podcast on intrusive thoughts, actually, go back through. But we get these thoughts, but it's what we do with these thoughts that really matter. Because these thoughts then can trigger the way that we feel emotionally, mentally, physically. So if we're constantly having negative thoughts about ourselves and about the world around us and about, our future, our past, that's going to show up in our negative emotions. And then because we're feeling negative emotionally, we're going to be feeling negative mentally. And because we're feeling negative mentally, we're not going to do the things. We're not going to go for new jobs. We're not going to go out to meet new people. We're not going to start new hobbies, because we need to feel motivated to do that. And when you're mentally drained and mentally exhausted and emotionally exhausted, you're not going to do all of those things. You just literally tread in water forever and ever and ever until the day that you die. I know that's a bit extreme, but it can be that if you don't take control and really look at what's going on inside your mind. And a lot of these stories that we tell ourselves feel true because we've said it to ourselves so many times. If we hear something 8 times, we're likely to adapt it. And I learned that when I was teaching. So we were told, teach something 8 times, it's going to sink in. Now, of course, as a school teacher, if you're listening to this, you'll think, oh my God, we don't have time to do things 8 times. But it's just having that repetition. So if you think some of your thoughts you may have had daily for years and years and years, of course you're going to believe them. And we choose what we believe in. That goes for anything. So as you know, call me a conspiracy theorist, I call myself a truth seeker, but I choose to believe in some of these things that come into my head, and I have questions about those, and I'm choosing to believe them. And it's the same if you follow a religion, you're choosing to believe that religion. Nothing is forced on us when it comes to belief, because we choose to take that belief on. And this goes for our thought patterns about ourselves and our lives and the world around us. So we're really going to challenge those today. I want to really break them apart so that we can step into 2025 feeling like we have control. And this is something that you're not going to listen to this podcast and suddenly have it all fixed. But what I would like, my intention for the podcast today, is for you to start reflecting, to start thinking about, right, okay, why am I thinking about this? And I control this thought and I can change it. I'm just going to give you a really quick example before we dive in too deep. So the beliefs, of course, beliefs, the way we see things, it's all our perspective. And I used to be the glasses half empty person instead of the glasses half full. And what that means is that you look at the things that you have, or rather you look at the things, you focus on the things that you don't have. So you might be thinking, I'm 40. Oh my God, I'm old. I don't own a home and I'm single. I don't have any children. I don't like my job. Oh, the weather's crap today. On and on and on. Any of these thoughts that might pop into your head, and you might have a friend that is this, that everything they pick up on is a negative. They believe it all to be negative. Instead of switching your perspective to see the actual, there's positives in all of those things. If you're 40, 50, 60, amazing. A lot of people don't live that long. A lot of people don't make it to their 20th birthday, 21st birthday, 30th birthday. When we hit these milestone ages, we need to take a moment and be grateful that we have our health. We are alive. We live to see another day. And again, that might sound dramatic, but we will all have. I have friends who I think about, every now and again. I'm like, oh my God, they're eternally 30. They never made, it's hard to grasp. So I had a friend who died, and I was thinking about him the other day actually, and I can't remember what year it was. I'm guessing 2008, but he was a little bit older. So he was 30, which is really young, but I looked up to him like he was, really grown up. He was this, oh my God, he's 30. And he unfortunately died out of the blue one night. He was party boy and it caught up with him. And I was thinking about him the other day that, he's eternally 30, and just now I'm older than him, and it's really weird. So of course it's not that weird because it's time. But just then thinking like, God, he never got a chance to experience marriage if he wanted to get married, and children, and just growing through his 30s. And I'll always remember he said to me, this is kind of sort of a side story, but his words stick with me. We were having a conversation one night and he asked me what I was afraid of. And I said, I don't want to die. I'm afraid of dying. And he said, well, what was it like before you were born? Of course, I was like, I don't know. I wasn't born. He's like, exactly. That's what it is like when you die. And that has stuck with me. And I think it's obviously stuck with me a lot more because it wasn't so long, maybe a couple of weeks after that conversation, that he did die. But just bringing that back to, what we're talking about today and these beliefs. And I really think that when I reflect and think back to him that, yes, he died, but those words that he said to me just stick with me. And it reminds me to be grateful. It reminds me not to be scared. I choose to not be scared of what's to come. Of course, I don't want to die. I'm probably still a little bit scared, but it really soothes me. I know I went off on a bit of a tangent there, sorry. But I don't even know why I ended there. How did I get there? How did I get talking about him? I can't remember. Let's get back with the podcast. It obviously fitted in, so when I edit, I'll be like, oh, okay, that's why I started talking about him. So some of these lies that we tell ourselves, the ones that we're going to pick out today, these are the lies that fuel fear, fuel stagnation, fuel procrastination. These are the lies that we tell ourselves that I would maybe argue sometimes they're a little bit of a protective blanket. We tell ourselves these lies because is it really that we're scared to do the opposite? Are we telling ourselves these lies because we don't want to push ourselves out of our comfort zone? These lies, these beliefs that we have about ourselves are our subconscious beliefs that are keeping us quiet and small and comfortable and in our little box. And when we choose not to believe these lies, we're stepping out of that box, stepping out of our comfort zone, and we have to push ourselves. And I think that is where, myself included, reflecting and thinking, maybe these lies I am telling myself because I'm scared of what might happen if I think the opposite. And this is really interesting, that this is kind of how we're conditioned to think as humans, that if you do think the opposite to what we're told, then again, you're told you're crazy, you're mad, you're a conspiracy theorist, why would you think that? And it's okay to think the opposite. Sometimes we need to think the opposite. So don't be afraid to go against the grain. Don't be afraid to ask yourself questions. Ask for evidence of why you're thinking that and why you have this belief. And then we also need to learn how to recognize when these lies are coming in. And you will all do this differently once you start to practice catching your thoughts. It might be that they're so ingrained that they don't pop in like, oh, hi, here's this lie you're just going to tell yourself. It's just there. It's just simmering away. It's on simmer. It's just keeping warm all of the time, ready for when you need it, or ready for when you don't need it, ready for when it wants to pop out. So we'll have a little chat about how to recognize those. And then the thoughts and beliefs that we actually do want to have, because we want to move forward. We want to have the best life. We want to be able to look back on our lives and think, oh my God, I had some amazing decades. These lies are the ones for me that pop their slimy little heads up every now and again, just to try and put me off, to try and throw me, to do whatever, to keep me in my little box. The first one is, it's too late. It's too late for me. And whether that's, I think for most women, that would be an age thing. So when I decided a couple of years ago that I did want to leave teaching, this was one that I really had to wrestle with, because I thought, God, I'm in my 30s. I can't be starting a new career in my 30s. Like, it's too late. Do I just stay where I am because it's comfortable? And if I'd have listened, I would still be there, and I wouldn't be doing this now. I wouldn't have a podcast. I wouldn't be sharing, all of the things that I'm sharing. I wouldn't be teaching yoga. I wouldn't be actually living a life now that I feel like is my passion. And, we tell ourselves these things because we're kind of given this timeline, particularly, again, as women, that we have to have certain things done by a certain age. And yes, that is moving away from tradition a lot more than it used to be. that women are now getting pregnant later. It's more accepted to get married a little bit later in life, or not married at all. You know, the pressure of buying a house and the age, you know, when you should buy a house. I didn't invest in property until a couple of years ago. So I was well out. But my brother is actually buying a house next year, and he's only 25, 26. But it's your own timeline. You do that when you're ready. Because if I had bought a house 10 years ago when I lived in the UK, when I was a similar age to my brother, I wouldn't have lived the life that I've had. I wouldn't be here in Dubai. I wouldn't have met my partner. You know, all of the amazing things I've done, I would still be somewhere when I look back now. I don't want to be there. And we all have our own paths. You will be able to think of something like, oh my God, if I hadn't have made that decision, I would still be there. So it is never too late. And I know it sounds like a real cliche, and it's never too late to start again. And when you've had a breakup, and at that time it can feel like, oh my God, you know, I'm too old, I'm never going to meet anybody. All of these thoughts will run through your head because, again, we're kind of conditioned to think, oh, you have to do the meeting of the life partner in your 20s, and that's it forever and ever until the day you die. But that doesn't have to be the case. I only met Joe 5 years ago, and I think I've spoken about this in previous podcasts, that if I was still with my first boyfriend, went from when I was 15, 16, again, living the life that I have now, it's weird to think about. So just take a moment just to reflect for yourself. Anything that at the time you thought that it was too late, anything at the time that you were like, oh my God, you know, I'm too old, I can't do that. And now look where you are. And you may have done it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, started new jobs, getting in new relationships, having children, all of the things. So just remind yourself that you can do this at any age. When I was doing my research for this, I pulled out a few little late in life famous people. This one's very random, but I'm going to go with it because it came up. Colonel Sanders founded KFC at the age of 65 after a lifetime of failures and career changes. He was 65. Vera Wang didn't enter the fashion industry until her 40s. Julia Child didn't publish her first cookbook until she was 50. So these examples just show that success doesn't have an age limit. And this lie creeps into me sometimes when I'm thinking about what do I want to do and what do I want to do next. I'm like, oh my God, I'm too old to do that. Or I haven't got enough time to get that started. And I really focus on the time aspect. And I do have to remind myself that, right, that doesn't matter. You can do it. You can try it. You can get it wrong. You can get it right. The only thing it needs is your motivation and your passion and your drive to do so. Let's have a little think. I want you to think now of a goal, a dream, a desire that you've been putting off because you think that it's too late. Whatever that might be, try and think big. So for example, I've not said this out loud. Do I say it? I don't know. I would love to write, I'm going to say it, I'm going to put it out there because it keeps popping up in my head. And I'm just going to give a live example here of my limiting beliefs. So I would love to write a book. And even when I say that, I feel like, what? Like, what would you write a book on? And these are the thoughts that run through my head straight away. Who's going to want to read your book? What have you got to say? What would you write a book on? And next year, I am going to I'm not going to commit to writing a book because, again, like the reasons I've just said, I also don't know, but I do feel driven. So what I am going to do is when things come to me, I'm going to write them down. I'm going to write down ideas for what I could possibly write a book on. I might not even have the information of what I want to write a book on yet. It might come next year. But there's something that every now and again when I'm in my car, I'm listening to I listen to audiobooks as I'm driving, and I think I could do this. And there's just a little bit of a, go on then, you can do it. But again, these negative thoughts, who'd want to read it? What are you going to write about? So I want you to think, and again, for me, my subconscious there is like, that's a stupid idea. So your stupidest idea, write it down and then break it into small chunks. So one of my small chunks is just to, when these ideas come into my head, jot it down. What would I like to write a book on? Would it just be, reflections of, would it be an ebook? Would it just be reflections on how I overcame my anxiety? And, sometimes I think I could write a book on being an expat or freelance and the stories that go with that. So these ideas, as they come, I'm going to start writing them down. That's going to be my first few steps. And what then happens is, once we do have a little bit of momentum, through these small consistent steps, this is when there can be a breakthrough. This is when the idea might happen. This is when something might come along and we're like, oh my God. For me, it might not be a full book. Maybe it's a chapter in a book. Maybe someone asks me to write for a magazine, but there's something there. See, these ideas, this is what I need to write down to get my momentum. So little live reflection there for you guys, just to, inspiration, go big. See and then break it down into small chunks. Lie number 2, I'm not good enough. This is, again, one of those lies that come up. I've just done it, haven't I? I have just done this lie that I'm not good enough to write a book. I've just done all of the things that I'm telling you to do today. When I come up with that idea, that this is something that pops into my mind, I've just done it, that I'm not good enough to do that. I've just done it live in front of you. But this is a lie that, again, we tell ourselves, and this comes from, on my own reflection, from school, I think. I think when we're in school, there's always this element of competition. There's always this element of who's done the best in the class, who's, got the top marks, and you never remember the times that it was actually you. You always remember, or you have that feeling that it was never you. And of course, as an adult, you can look back and think, oh gosh, they were really clever. So of course they're going to get, top marks in the test every single time. But it's these little things, and I know that's a really trivial example, but it's these things that happen to us over the years that put into our minds that we're not good enough. Not getting the best score on the test, not getting the boy that you fancy, not winning the race, not getting a job, and we bank all of these, oh, I wasn't good enough for that, that's why I didn't get it. Oh, I'm not good enough, so I'm not. And then as an adult, we have this solid belief that I'm not good enough. And I also think that a little bit of this belief comes from that it seemed quite negative to be like, I'm the best, I'm good enough for this, I can do it. People go, oh my God, look at her, she's a bit of a big head, or she's, a bit cocky. And we need to, again, retrain our brains that we are good enough. We are enough. We have skills and mannerisms and ideas and ways that we are within ourselves that other people look at and go, oh my God, look at what she's doing. We just don't allow ourselves to mirror that. So when we're looking at people thinking, oh my God, she's amazing. And for me, it might be yoga. I'll watch other teachers or watch other people doing yoga. I'm like, oh my God, they're way more flexible than me. I don't say it like that. Oh, I don't teach properly. I don't use those words. And then it can take for someone to come up to me at the end of the class to tell me how much they love my class, to then remind myself that I am good enough in my own way. I have my own way of doing things. People come to me because they enjoy my class, and these just little thoughts that, again, it's very quick to come in. We'll see someone doing something and then again we tell ourselves, I'm not good enough. I'm not as good as them. I can't do that. Just a reminder that when we are looking at these other people and we are comparing ourselves, if they are an expert or a professional in something, we all had to start somewhere. It was all trial and error. And a lot of people say this to me when they come to my classes and, I'm not flexible and I can't do this. And, and I have to remind them that neither could I. I've had to learn and practice and show up and do the things to get to the stage that I'm at. And then again, I'll reflect on them and think, I look at other people and think exactly the same as you. And it's like this vicious cycle of I'm not good enough because we're always comparing. And then what happens? Those blocks get in the way. We don't apply for the jobs that we want, or we don't go, we don't ask people for opportunities because we think I'm not good enough for that, so I'm not going to do it. And then we see someone else doing it. And then instead of thinking, oh my God, amazing, look what they're doing, we think, oh God, I wasn't good enough. So just reminding yourself that you are enough. You are perfect exactly as you are. You are you. There will be someone who wakes up in the morning and they cannot wait to see you that day. And just take a moment now just to think of times when you've overcome challenges and remind yourself, I am enough. Look what I did there. I overcame that breakup. I overcame that divorce. I overcame what? I've run out of ideas. My mind's gone blank. But reflecting on whatever it is that at that time was so difficult, and now look how far you've come. So again, if you've got a journal or you're going to go away and just reflect on the podcast today, I just want you to reflect on one thing you've done well today. So one thing I might write down for today is recording this podcast, because 18 months ago I wasn't good enough for a podcast. I didn't start. And then other people would tell me that they wanted to start a podcast, and I would think, oh, I'm not going to, because they are. And even now, sometimes someone has a podcast, or I see someone else with their fancy recording equipment and they're in a studio, and I do have a thought, a brief split second, that mine isn't as good as theirs because of X, Y, Z. And I do have to remind myself again that Joe Rogan started in his bedroom. And it's funny that only a couple of weeks ago I was having this conversation with my partner that, Joe Rogan only started his podcast in his bedroom, and the first episode is really grainy, and I was just saying out loud all the things to make me feel better, that I'm not in a fancy yoga studio, not in a fancy podcast studio. I don't have fancy equipment, Yes, I have an editor and I have a ring light, but that's it at the moment. And my subconscious belief of I'm not good enough then boils down to the equipment and not actually me. And I was listening to another podcast, and they were talking about someone had left a podcast and they'd lost thousands and thousands and thousands of subscribers. And it was a really nice reminder that people subscribe and people listen because it's you. So for me to reflect there that people listen because it's me, and not because of the equipment and the stuff that I have around me. Because you can have all the equipment and all the gear, but still not be very good at what you're doing. So again, reflecting on where you're doing the same there. Is there somewhere in your life that you're putting yourself down because you're comparing to somebody else? And remember that it's you that people want to see, not the fancy equipment. I hope that makes sense. That was a really big metaphor, wasn't it there? Last lie that I'm going to pick apart is I need to be perfect before I start. Now, again, this kind of links with the other two. I'm going to use my yoga teaching. Actually, let's go back. Let's go back to when I did my school teacher training. And I remember that I'd had one of my days in university. We, used to go for the theory, and then we could be back in the school. And my mentor at the time in the school, she'd emailed me and said, "Oh, you've got the time to take this class." And it was a really naughty class, really naughty, inner city, Stoke-on-Trent. I don't know if I'd be able to deal with them now. Anyway. So it was a really naughty class. There was this one kid in the class as well. I won't say his name in case people listen and they know. And I was like, oh my God. And I wasn't physically, mentally, emotionally ready. Anyway, she gave me the class plan, the idea, and said, you're going to do this poem. And I freaked out. I very nearly called in sick, and I wanted to cry because I felt like I wasn't ready. And it was fear. And I was trying to put it off. And I emailed back and just said, I haven't, I can't remember the excuse now, but, X, Y, Z. And she was like, oh, you'll be fine. Sent me a document to read. And that was just my perfectionism. That was me panicking because I didn't feel ready to step in front of that class, to teach that poem, to make the PowerPoint. But I did it the next day and it actually went fine. And the feedback from the class was fine. There was a little bit too much teacher talk, but then I learned then that, okay, don't talk so much, let them get on with it a little bit. Because what I did was just step in and I was like, right, this is what the poem is all about, and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, because I felt like I had control. Now, if I'd have let my I need everything perfect mindset to step in there, would I have hindered my progress? I finished as an outstanding trainee teacher. Would I have then put myself on the back foot because I didn't just, I ended up doing it. It wasn't perfect and that was okay. If I'd have tried to wait, would the perfect time ever have come? Would I have always been nervous? Yes, probably, because it was a very nerve-wracking class. But by the end of the year, I was in there, I was teaching on my own. I had the naughty boy eating out of the palm of my hand, and it was good. And he's reached out to me as an adult and he's like, oh, miss, you're a really good teacher. They didn't realise I was a trainee teacher. Fast forward to when I've taught my first yoga class. And I think that I said, well, I was going to put only 5 spaces because I was nervous. And I was like, I don't want more than 5 people. I don't want more, trying to put it off. And I had everything written down and practicing the flow. And then when you come to teach, you realize, oh, these people in front of me, aren't advanced, so I can take some things out and I don't have to, I can move things around and, I can play around, but without getting these things wrong and actually seeing that, oh, sometimes I need to adapt on the spot. No matter how perfect my plan is, I need to go with it. And then what happens is, because you let go of perfection, you're able to progress, because you're able to get things wrong and learn. So stepping into, again, for me, mentoring in 2025, when I launched my face yoga, of course I've done the trainings. I am a little bit nervous about sharing it, but now that I know that I don't have to be perfect, because if I don't know something, I can go away and have a look. I can advise, I can do my best, and I'll learn as I go. I'll get feedback and people will tell me whether things were good and whether things felt right or the opposite of that. So really letting go of everything needs to be perfect before you do something, and just allowing yourself to learn, to progress. We don't get on a bike straight away and we're able to ride a bike, and we can't jump into a swimming pool and we don't instantly swim, and all of these things that we can't drive as soon as we get into a car, and we have to learn how to drive. If we'd have let this perfectionism get in the way of all of these, we wouldn't do half the things that we do as adults, because we would have put the fear into us as children, as teenagers, as young adults. And I really think that a nice mantra for this is done is better than perfect. Done is better than perfect. So at least you've done it, at least you've tried. And you'd say this if you've had children, you'll tell your children that, don't worry, we can try again. And I used to say this to the children when I was teaching in class, that, how are you going to know if something's right if you haven't made a mistake? It's hard to get something perfect first time. Do you think all of the things that we see around the world and, movies and music, and they would have had lots and lots of takes? The Instagram models and people that we see, and we take a selfie and we're like, oh my God, that's disgusting. And then we compare ourselves, they've probably taken thousands of pictures to get that one. So done is better than perfect. And I want you to, again, a little bit of homework here, that I want you to try and do an imperfect action today. Try and do something that you've never done before, or something you're putting off, something that makes you feel like, oh my God, I'm not going to get it right. I want you to go and get it wrong. Go and get it wrong. Try it, see how it feels, because it doesn't feel as bad as we tell ourselves. We don't need to be perfect. How do we move forward? First of all, you need to recognize your lies. So my 3 lies: it's too late for me, not good enough, I need everything to be perfect. I know when those lies are coming in, and it's all self-doubt, it's all perfectionism, it's all procrastination. So when I feel that this is coming in because I've recognized these lies that I tell myself, I take a step back. And whichever lie it is, I then try to reframe it. So, it's too late. It's never too late. You know, if my grandma, who's in her 80s, said to me, oh, I want to do X, Y, and Z, I'm not going to say, you're too old, Nan. You're not going to do that. You can't go dancing lessons. You can't ride a horse. I'd be like, oh my God, Nana, amazing. Amazing. Yes, go and do it. So taking a moment just to reflect on, okay, who would I tell someone else that they're too old, that it's too late for them? Or would you encourage them to do it? So put your grandma, your granddad, you know, someone older than you. How would you talk to them? Talk to yourself in exactly the same way. Show yourself that love, that care that you would to them. And you remind yourself it's never too late. You're never too old. And we live in a time now where we have access to seeing amazing people. I follow this lady on Instagram from one of my previous podcasts, and she's 80 something and she's bodybuilding and she's doing all these amazing things. I'm like, oh my God, she's got an amazing life. And would I ever say to her, oh, come on, Duck, sit down. You're a bit old for this now. No, I wouldn't. And I shouldn't do the same to myself. The same with I'm not good enough. I have to remind myself that everyone has to start somewhere. Everyone was a beginner at some point. So again, would I tell my best friend that she's not good enough to do something? Absolutely not. How would I talk to her? I would remind her of all of the amazing things that she is good at and all of the amazing things that she's done, so that I can show her that, look, you can do this. Go off and get it. The same with the perfectionism. So it's about catching it. Ooh, I've done it today when I was talking about the book. What I'll do today is I'm going to finish this podcast. I'm going to write those things down that I said. I'm going to stop that you can't do that belief to I'm actually thinking about it and I'm writing things down. And I would love you, if you're writing these in your journal or make an Instagram post or anything, or if you just have any questions and you want to share, please do so. I would love to hear the lie, and I want to hear how you flipped that around. In 2025, and this whole podcast isn't about wishing for change, isn't about wishing that things were different. It's about creating. So your future isn't set in stone. Your future isn't set in stone. It's built by the actions that you take today. So reflecting, doing those small steps. Every step you take, no matter how small, moves you one step closer. So let 2025 be your breakthrough year. Let 2025 be the year when you are actually like, do you know what? F it. I can do that. I've been wanting to do that for a long time. And as I'm saying this, all these things are popping into my head that I want to do. I'm going to start ballet dancing next year. Ballet, as in Belly. I'll share once I start, but that's another thing that I've been putting off because you can't do that. It's a bit silly. Why are you starting something new now? I'm going to. So I'm going to end the podcast there. Please reach out to me. Please share me the lies and the truths that you're now telling yourself. Remember you are enough. Remember it's never too late. And remember that done is better than perfect. See you next week.